Hello, everyone. The analysis of the primary documents will show that there has been a change in how women are viewed in general throughout time. However, that change in how they have been viewed and treated has progressed slowly, and there is still more that is needed to help women progress immensely forward in order to be treated as equal towards men. And George Robert 12 Hughes, the Boston Tea Party, we see no mention of women in what is one of the most infamous occasions that led to the American Revolution. There is no mention of any women attending the committee that would ultimately commit the very act that would be mentioned centuries later. In colonial America, women were not allowed to give their political input, as this was a man's job to handle. Even as they went to a meeting and it was dissolved, the men there cried, "Let every man do his duty and be true to his country," the statement being masculine focused. This adds to the idea in Terry Snyder's article on early America and how it was man-dominated in every aspect, including political. In Terry Snyder's article, Women, Race, and the Law in Early America, we see just how badly women were treated. In very early North America, slaves were the norm and were found in all parts of the native world. Slaves mostly consisted of women, as the men were usually killed. These women were used as reproductive slaves, especially in high time of mortality. They were used just for field work and domestic tasks. As time progressed, race played a bigger part in women's statuses. If a woman was black, she was not free for a long time. When she was able to be free, she had to pay taxes, while white women did not have to. In the 19th century, women were just starting to really fight for their rights as human beings. In Elizabeth Cady Stanton's speech address on women's rights, she compares England to the United States and how England seems to be ahead of them because England at least lets women have a right to hold an office and allows them to vote and be on the throne. She mentions how the United States is a Christian country and boasts about their advantages, but never talks about how women are inferior to men and how they are used for labor at home and in the fields. She talks about how women are unrepresented in this government, are unrepresentative in this government, our rights and interests wholly overlooked. Women had little progression at this point. However, they did have the fight in them to want to gain more rights and be equal to men in America. In Joni Tillman's article, Welfare is a Woman's Issue, much has changed from women, but not all for the good. Tillman goes on to mention how poor women are put on welfare and looked down upon in society. They need it for survival, especially if they are single and with kids and cannot work. They cannot even have a man in the house because he counts as an able body, and then the family cannot go on welfare. Race can play a big part in this, but Tillman says that 2/3 of all poor families in the country are white. See, she uses the analogy of how being on welfare is the worst kind of marriage there is, and then talks about how bad being on welfare for a woman is while using the same analogy. She says society has women on welfare in order to make the women who are working see just what would happen if they stopped and to keep them from fighting for higher wages, as you can see here. In the American YAWP, we still see women who are having to fight to be equal to men and to be treated properly. The section, The Culture Wars, in the 1980s, talks about how simple things women did, such as singing music, were seen as evil by some Americans. There were other things that were frowned upon and still seen as evil acts, such as the right to abortion as well. These would sometimes lead to violent altercations. Even with the progression in rights for women, they are still not seen as equal to men. They are still seen as property or as being unable to care and think for themselves, and there are laws in place that still prevent women from doing some things that they should be able to do for themselves. Women are still fighting for their rights over their own bodies and to be able to take care of and be themselves without any discrimination. Okay, guys, this is my sources that I used. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something from it. Thank you. Bye-bye.